You're listening to the Wise Women Invest podcast, a division of Noise Media Network, hosted by Audrey Bell Kearney. Wise Women Invest is on a mission to help 1 million women learn how to make smart money moves by becoming savvy investors in real estate, the stock market, cryptocurrency, and early-stage businesses. Now your host, chief noisemaker, and wise woman herself, Audrey Bell Kearney.
Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Wise Women Invest. I'm your host, Audrey Bell Kearney, and my co-host, Ms. Carolyn Shoemate.
Good morning. So excited to be here.
I know we missed you last week. Y'all missed both of us because Carolyn was at a conference and I was somewhere, I don't know, working hard. So but that's what we do. So we're not going to complain. We're not going to complain at all. So Carolyn, thank you so much again for co-hosting this episode of Wise Women Invest with me. I'm happy to have you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. I wanted to talk about wills, and what was crazy is before there's a story I'm going to tell you about, and it is going to lead right up until why a 25-year-old need wills. So this morning when I was doing the Good Morning Gwinnett show, there was an article in the I think it was a Daily Post, Gwinnett Daily Post, and it was talking about this young lady who had went to a chiropractor, and a couple of days later she was paralyzed because arteries in her neck were ruptured or something. And they think that came from her being adjusted at the chiropractor. And so that's what the article said in Gwinnett Daily Post. And so after I was telling the story, it hit me. And what made it hit me was that her family was saying she's going to have a very long recovery. And right now we don't have the money. So we have a GoFundMe. So can you imagine what hit me? What hit me was if she had a life insurance policy with the living benefit, they probably wouldn't have to do a GoFundMe. Am I correct in saying that?
Probably. It all depends on the dynamics of the policy. You know, either that or, you know, a lot of times people don't have emergency funds, and we talk about that. But living benefits certainly help when you have policies in place for that. So unexpected emergencies or things that happen. And the unfortunate thing, Audrey, is that so many people don't think about having living benefits or having anything until something happens. And so that's why I'm so glad that you have this platform to talk about those things, that maybe it will perk someone's heart, will perk their mind, will perk them to where they'll say, let me go put this in place. Let me go get this done so that my family is not setting up GoFundMe accounts because I failed to put some things in place for my family. So yes, there are some policies out there. There are some benefits out there that a family can have in place so that if something that's so tragic, so that something like that happens, they don't have to wait. It's like waiting for the world to help you take care of something that you could have taken care of yourself.
But you know, I think by her, she's 28 years old. So by her being so young, she's probably not even thinking about that. You know, she's thinking about, I'm 28. I just graduated with my master's in bioscience and chemistry. You know, she's probably thinking about, I'm ready to start my life. And she go to get an adjustment to her neck, and now she's paralyzed. And I was like, man, that's so tragic. So as I was telling the story, and I was telling the story because I wanted people to go and support her GoFundMe. You know, in my mind, I'm thinking she has a whole life ahead of her. And if they can just help her get the funds to recover, you know, she'll have even more. But then it hit me in the midst of the story, like, man, what would have happened if she had an insurance policy with a living benefit attached to it and her family didn't have to do a GoFundMe? And so for those of you who want to, I'm going to see can I find the link again and put it in it because I want you to support her. My guess is that they don't have the funds. That's why they have a GoFundMe. I'm going to type her name in. And you said it, Carol. Like, I don't think they think about this. When my daughter was pregnant with the baby, when she was pregnant, I said to her, listen, you need to get a life insurance policy like right now. You're young enough. The baby's 3. So at that time she was 20. She was 28. I said to her, get you a life insurance policy. And when the baby's born, we're going to put a rider on her, which is what we did. I said, because you don't want it ever to be a problem where something happens to you and then you got to be worried about what's going to happen to the baby. I said, of course, I'm going to be there if I can. But what if I'm not? And I know she don't have siblings. It's just her. I only had one. So I wanted to make sure that she had that in place. So she has had that policy since she was 28. So the policy right now is about, it's 4 years, it's 3 years old, but she's had it that long. I don't think they think about these things, because if nobody is telling them to do these things, I was raised on insurance. My mother had insurance for everything. She had insurance for the car note, the credit card bill. She had insurance. Carolyn, when I tell you she was out sick with cancer, there was an insurance for everything that she needed to pay. And she had them all. And we used to be fussing like, why you pay so much money? When she got sick, we knew why she paid. I remember going to the bank and taking her Aflac check to the bank. It was $27,000. The girl at the bank said to me, Aflac really pays? I was like, yeah, it really does pay. And here's a check to prove it. The check was $27,000, but she was out with cancer. So but she had that benefit in place. So these things are really, really important.
They really are. And Audrey, I tell folks all the time, I said, listen, when you think about it, and we'll get to the wheels in a second, but when you think about it, just like your mom did, we have insurance on our car. We have insurance on our phones.
Yep.
On our phones.
Yes.
You're right. And we don't think it's important enough for us to have it on our life. Right. And that's where there's a concern for me, because those things, you can buy another one if something happens to it. But if something happens to you and you're the breadwinner in your family, they can't get another Tom, Dick, Jane, Susie, Shaquita. They can't get another one. You follow? They're going to have to. So you're going to have to do a GoFundMe account or find other means. So we insure those things in our life. So we should also insure our life so that we can make sure that our loved ones are not left destitute if something happens to us.
Absolutely. And I think that's why this is so important. And so, that story really touched my heart this morning. And I was like, man, 28 years old. She graduated from Georgia Southern with a master's in biochemistry. And so I'm a nerd. So science and math is my thing. So I'm like, but the flip side of that is I can just imagine her family just worrying about, oh my God, how are we going to help her recover? How are we going to help her get the medical resources and the medical help that she needs to recover? That's a lot. So you're worried about your baby because they're still your babies. I don't care how old they get, they're still your babies. You worry about your baby, and then you're trying to figure out how to make sure that you can stay afloat, and then make sure that she's taken care of so she can recover, hopefully fully recover. So that's so important. So, but Carolyn, we have to make these young folks start to understand that you have to put these things in place. Get it. You may not have nothing but your car, but if your car is paid for, put that in your will.
Exactly. One of the things that the insurance and then the will, Audrey, is so important, because a lot of the young folks think that, well, I don't have anything, but yes, you do. The only reason you would not have a will is if you are young, you're totally broke, meaning you don't have a job, you don't have absolutely anything, you don't have any kids. That's the only reason why you may not need one yet. And we say yet because the minute you start to accumulate assets, you need to have a will. The minute you start doing that, one of the things that we don't think about when we're 25, when we're 22. I do workshops down at the AU Center and down at the universities here. Just recently did one at Clark. Here's the thing that a lot of young folks don't understand is you want to make sure, just like they're very, very opinionated, they're always talking. They want to make sure you know how they think about some things. Well, when you leave here, you want to make sure that everybody follows what your wishes were, whatever your wishes are. If you have a child, yes, there's some 25-year-olds who have children. If you have a child, you need a will, because in some states, the state will take care of whatever it is that's left behind. They'll make those decisions. They'll decide who gets your kid. Yeah. You have the ability to do that right now. If you have any assets, as Audrey mentioned a few minutes ago, you got a car. Let's say you have some designer clothes, some designer shoes. Here's an opportunity for you to say, this is who I want to get this. This is who I want to get that. You might want to leave something special to some of your friends. Maybe it's not someone in your family you want to leave it to. You may have a couple of red bottoms that you say, I'm going to leave this to my best girlfriend. Well, if you don't leave a will, the person that you don't want to have them is going to have those red bottoms. So one of the things you really want to do is to make sure that your wishes are known, and you do that when you have a will.
Carolyn, I want you to touch again on the part about the children, because I think that, to me, I didn't even think about that part. But if you have a kid, let's say you're 25 and God forbid something tragic happens to you, and you don't want certain people to have your kids, it could be your mother, but they feel like that's my grandkid, I want, but maybe you don't have the best mother in the world, and you don't want your kids with that person. So talk about that again, because I feel like that's something we need to amplify.
Yeah, well, in some states, if they're a probate state or they're in, depending on what the state laws are, if you die and there's no will and they're children, the state makes them a ward of the state immediately. And your family has to jump through all kind of red hoops in order to get you back. I can remember a couple of years ago, there was a young lady who had she had three kids, two by one guy and one by another. She died, no will in place, but she did have a life insurance policy. The father, one of the fathers, who was very what word should I use? I'll just say he was very violent, and she made sure that her kids had no association with him at all. Well, she didn't have a will in place. When she died, he came and took those kids. And so the family had to fight like tooth and nail to get to go to court to get those kids back from him. Now, he thought that he was going to be able to get some of the money that he heard about with the insurance policy. But, with insurance policies, you get to designate a beneficiary. Nobody else has any rights to that money. So nobody can get it. No one can, it supersedes the will because you've named a beneficiary. And so there was nothing he could do about it. After a while, he stopped fighting and they were able to get the kids back. But because there was no will, that state, they literally, the kids became a ward of the state, and the family could not get them. And so you want to make sure that you let your wishes be known. Whoever you want to have your kid, it may not be your mom or your sister or your brother. It could be a best friend, it could be, but you have to designate who you want to raise your kids. And it's a very important thing. It should be taken seriously. And once you make that decision, let the person know, look, I'm putting you in my will to take care of my kids if something happens to me. Because again, if you don't do that, the state will make the decision of what's going to happen with your kids. It's very, very important.
And think about this. Who knows what kind of trauma those kids had to go through, because the father that the mother did not want to have custody of them is taking them through all of this turmoil after she's gone. So that's like a whole nother stress, not only on the family for her loss, but on the children for her loss, and for this father who, obviously you weren't a good dad, because this wouldn't be a problem right now. So you got to think about all of these things. I know life is, we go through life doing so much stuff that sometimes you don't want to think about these things, but you have to. I thought about something and I wanted to share this. In 1999, I became a financial advisor. 1999, I set up a will for my uncle and my mom. Who would have thought 10 years later he would have been gone? He was gone 10 years later, Carolyn. He was fine, and then in 2009 he became sick, and it just ended right there. He didn't live like months and years later. It was like March to July he was out, but he had that will that I had prepared in 1999. So she had one and he had one. When it was time, and it was 8 of them, 8 brothers and sisters. Everybody's still living, and so when it was time for us to do the funeral, there was no questions about anything. It was a will. And it was right there. And he put it in place before he was even sick, before his wife had even passed away. They were both living, and 10 years later, they were both gone. And so when
Wow.
it was time to execute on that will, we didn't have a problem with it. Now people wanted to give a problem, but because we had the will in place, there was no problem. And I straight said, listen, nobody's about to stress my mother out. Here's the paperwork, read it for yourself. And that's how it went. And so I remember one of the aunts, she couldn't do anything. You know what she did? She took a picture off the wall. That's all she could do. She took the picture and she's like, we're gonna take this picture. We're gonna take this picture. And she took the picture, we're like, okay.
Well,
But
whatever.
everything else is in this will. So we're not gonna fight with you, and you're not gonna stress my mother out because she just lost her brother. And so that's important because at the end of the day, people get crazy at that time.
They really do. A lot of times the emotions are all over the place. And kudos to you, Audrey, for putting that in place, because so many times people don't think like that. That you're really, and it's better to do it when the emotions are not in place. When it's a good time, you're young. When you're young, the better it's already done. I say put it in place so it's out of the way. You've done it. You may want to go back and revise it later on, but it's done. It's out of the way. You don't have to think about it. If something happens, you don't have to worry about it. And I'll tell you something else that we don't talk about a lot, but there are a lot of people who have pets, and those pets are close to them as family members are. You can put who's going to take care of your pets in your will. You can leave that. There are people who have left thousands of dollars to pets as well, because they have. You can do that to make sure the pet's going to be taken care of. But what you do it so you can get it done. Do it so there's not all that emotional upheaval when something does happen to you. Look, on another scale, you're young, you may have a girlfriend or boyfriend that you want to leave something special to so they can remember you for the rest of their lives. You put it in a will. I want so and so to have my music collection. I want so and so to have my book collection. It's important to make sure, even when you don't think about it, and as you start to accumulate more assets, you can always go change the will to make sure that those things are covered in there. But you want to get it done. Get it done when there's nothing going on. Get it done when you don't have emotions attached to it. Get it done so you don't have to worry about people fighting over stuff when you're gone from here, because it will happen. Sometimes emotions make people think about all kinds of stuff.
It will happen. And just like Carolyn said, you're young right now. We've seen stories, if you ever watched, I watched a TikTok one night. It was heartbreaking, Carolyn. I'm talking about my heart was, I just wanted to cry. So it was a young couple, they were in their 20s, had just got married, and the guy went off and got killed in a car accident. They were like 25, 27, just got married, and he died in a car accident. So the way they started to tell the story, they started with showing the wedding pictures and their proposal and all that stuff, and then towards the end they showed the tragedy. It was heartbreaking because people love. They looking at, oh, that's beautiful, and then towards the end they showed the heartbreaking moment where she is falling apart because he died in an accident. Now they had just started their lives, right? But think about those type of things you didn't plan for. But I hate to say it, but you have to plan for everything. And
You have
and as much as we go through on a regular basis, just trying to keep the household together, you have to plan for everything. You have to make sure these things are in place all the time because you never know. And just think about this for a second. What if you married somebody or were in a relationship that your family didn't like, but you still love that person and wanted to leave them? Because the first thing they're going to say is they didn't like you. They didn't like the boyfriend, so they're not giving you anything. In your heart, you would want him to have had that. So you need to put that in the will. If they hated her and you're gone, they're gonna treat you like trash. So you need to
That's
put that in
very
the
true.
will.
That's very true. And they will come. I think last year we had a case where we had a young lady who died, and her sister lived in her house with her. She was married, but she did not get a divorce from her husband. Nobody in the family liked him, but her sister lived in the house with her. She did not have a will. When she died, her ex-husband, or the husband, I should say her husband, came over and told the sister, "You need to move out of my house." And that had to happen. She was distraught. She was calling, "What do I do about it? Is there anything?" There was nothing she could do. Absolutely nothing. And there's a lot of young people right now, Audrey, who own homes. And if you own a home, you need to have a will. You need to make sure, don't think about it as well. If I'm gone, there's no more mortgage. Nobody's going to pay the mortgage. Somebody may want to keep that house and keep it in the family. You work so hard to get it. Put it in the will who you want to inherit that asset. It is an asset. If you have money in the bank, if you, as we talked about before, if you have collectibles, anything that you have that's considered an asset, your life, you want to make sure that you make some notes about that and let someone know and get a will together, because otherwise things can happen that you just would not imagine. But he literally kicked her out. He said, you need to leave my house. He knew they didn't like him. And I think a lot of it was more spiteful than his actually needing to have the house. But he kicked her out. And her home that she had lived in, I think she was in there for about 12 years. She had to leave because it was his house, or his name was still on the house as well. And she had made those changes. And that's another point. Well, since I just brought it up, is make sure that if you get married, young people, if you get married to someone who already had a relationship long term with someone else, or married, make sure that all of there's closure, that there's no further connections with that person, that there's nothing, their name is not on anything. We've had instances, Audrey, and I'll tell you this real quick story.
Mm-hmm.
A long time ago, I do volunteer work, a lot of volunteer work, and I was a volunteer. I forget what they call it, but I was with the Red Cross, and part of our responsibility was to monitor outside the intensive care unit. And one of the reasons why I did this was because I had a fear of hospitals. I did not like going into hospitals. And so I
Mm-hmm.
volunteered to force myself to go into a hospital and get into the environment. Anyway, long story short, this guy was married to another lady, and his former wife, he never ever took her off of anything. And when he got sick, he was in ICU. Both of these women showed up to see him, and I had to deal with, okay, who has president. And so when I talked to her, she said, well, um, really, you can tell both of them to leave because he's in ICU. He can't see anybody right now. Just be as polite as you can and tell that they both have to bring some kind of documentation because we can't get involved in that. But he had not closed off relationships with the past. So young folks, if you get involved with someone, make sure everything's clear, the paperwork's clear, the will is clear, whoever's name is on the house, that your name is on the house, all of that. We don't think about it, but it's so important. Just like if you have a beneficiary on a policy and that person is no longer in your life, make sure you get it changed, because if something happens to you, guess what? It goes to that person who's no longer in your life. So just important tips that you want to remember as we become even wiser with our assets and with our money.
Carolyn, that brings up a story. So I got to share one. So I got a call from a family member this past weekend, and they said, we knew who to call. We knew who to call. And I said, what's up? And then she said, so the family member said, listen, I just got a letter from my attorney saying we need to update our power of attorney. It expired and it's going to be 30 years on August the 13th. And I said, I didn't even know that a power of attorney had an expiration date on it. Apparently theirs did. So she said, and right now, that power of attorney is attached to $1.6 million. And I was like, really? So in my mind, I'm thinking, y'all about to get $1 million. So she said $1.6 million, and they just put the paperwork in on June 20th, which is why they let me know that their power of attorney is about to expire on August 13th. And I said, well, okay. I said, well, it may not be something you need to consult with a lawyer about. Let me take a look at it. And if you do, then I can, point you to one. But she said, but the ex-wife is still attached. And I said, well, how is that? Because she's the current wife. I said, well, how is that possible? She said, well, it's something that happened and she's still attached. And I said, but did she get remarried? She was like, yeah, but some kind of way she's still attached. And so I said to her, I need to see the documents because right now I can't even envision what you're saying. I need to see those documents. Again, like you said, make sure everybody's name is off of everything because this is so they've been married, let me see, 33 years, I think. And this
Wow.
woman name, and she's remarried. Her name is still on something that's about to bring them in $1.6 million. And her name is on it.
Yeah. See, that's not good. That is
Good.
not good. Not good. So you have to do that. I mean, sometimes it may bring up some emotions, but it's better to have them now than in the future when you're expecting something and then you realize that somebody else is involved. And
Yep.
that's why it's so important to we call it getting your house in order. So no matter if you're over the age of 18 and you're working and you have assets and you have a car and you have things, you want to make sure that you get your will in place and that you start putting the other things in place that you need to. I mean, there are other smart money moves you can make when you're in your 20s as well. We'll talk about those in another show, but you want to make sure that you have your will in place, that you have some insurance in place on your life in case something happens to you. And we tell you to have it outside the job because millennials and Gen X's and Y's, you guys switch jobs like on a New York minute, just really,
That's
really
right.
quick. So you want to make sure that you have something outside of that so you're protected.
Absolutely. And you know what, Carolyn, it's so funny you say that. You guys really do switch jobs. I've seen the time where one person will be at one job for 55 years just in time so they can retire. Not Gen Xers, not Gen Ys. They're like, look, millennials, like, listen, not Gen Xers, Gen Zs, Gen Ys, and millennials. They like, look, we don't like the way you're treating us. You're not treating the earth right. We're gonna quit. They don't care. And you guys know we're telling the truth. But here's the thing, when you go to that job and they give you your benefit package and it has insurance and 401ks and all these things, and then you decide I hate them, and then you move on. If you stay there for a period of time, you're going to turn a couple of years older. The older you get, the more expensive all these things become. So you want to have your outside benefit plan already in place. So when you jump ship on job 1, 2, and 3, you're still straight on the outside because it's already in place. That's so funny you say that because I have a millennial and she constantly every day think about jumping ship on her job. And I'm thinking, you gonna leave the job again? But they don't care because they're not happy. They're not like we used to be where we sat at a job forever until they close the job down and then we were forced to leave. Not them. You're
No,
not good to the earth. We're leaving. So
and you're absolutely right. And so as a last tip for those generations, when you do leave the job, if you have benefits there, take them with you or roll them out of there. Call Audrey or call me so that we can help you roll it out. Don't leave. It's just like visiting someone and you have a wallet with money in it and everything. You don't leave your wallet there. So don't leave your money where you're not going to be anymore. And so we can help you roll it out of there.
all right, Carolyn, what's your phone number so they can reach out to you?
It's 404-844-8110. Again,
All right.
that's 404-844-8110.
All right, listen, you want to reach out, you want to get more of this wisdom, you need Carolyn to contact you, call her. She can help you. Call me, email us, call us. Listen, we're here to help. We're here to educate. We're here to make sure that you are financially stable. We want to make sure that you're making smart money moves. I like that, Carolyn. So we're going to talk about smart money moves for the generations. I like that. So when she said, I was like, yes, smart money moves for the generations. We're gonna start with the babies and work our way up because the Xers and the boomers, we kind of got it. But it's your babies, and don't get offended. Some of you are really like still babies to us. Because some of you, I'm not a baby. Some of you are still babies to us, and some of you are babies to your parents and your uncles and your aunts and your grandmothers. We're gonna do a smart money moves for the generations. So that's gonna be a series that Carol and I are gonna work on. So we're gonna start with I think is it the Y that's next, the babies, or
Mhm,
is it the
mhm.
G? Is it the Z?
I think it's the Y or the G. I have to look at the chart because they
Okay.
keep adding them to me.
I keep adding them. So whatever, we're gonna start with the youngest generation first and gonna work our way up to the boomers because believe it or not, there are still boomers who want to know, what can I do with all these assets that I have? Because at some point we all gonna get up out of here, and you want to make sure your assets are protected and that they're also given to the right people once you are gone. So just stay tuned for that. We're probably gonna kick off next week with that generations smart money moves for the generations segments, and we're gonna be talking about a lot of stuff. Carolyn, as always, thank you so much for being here with me today. You could have been anywhere, y'all. Y'all could have been anywhere, but y'all are here with Carolyn and I. And listen, 25 is not too old to have a will, especially if you have assets and children. Especially, I didn't think about the kids, but especially if you have assets and children, it is not too young to have a will.
Absolutely.
All right. So listen, we'll be back again next Wednesday, same bat time, same bat place, talking money, baby, talking money. You guys stay safe out there. And until next time, make it a great day. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Wise Women Invest podcast. Tune in daily at 6 p.m. for a new investment tip to help you make smart money moves. To learn more about Wise Women Invest and to join our community and investment club, go to www